Hello. Merry Christmas to everybody. Before Christmas lunch, I was listening to this old Stossel interview with Adam Carolla. Adam Carolla is a comedian who has very blue collar roots, so he's very relatable. Except for his squeaky voice. Though I suppose I, of all people, should not really comment on that. And Stossel is a lovely chap, ex-journalist who used to expose, I think, corporate misdeeds as well as other things. He's a libertarian now. I believe he's been a libertarian for a very, very, very long time. So he's a man I have a lot in common with. I don't have his glorious moustache, but hey, man can have everything. So this, however, is going to be a brief discussion about something that has nothing to do with either of these two men. Adam will say something, and that something that he will say is said by everybody. And I cannot relate to it at all. So I would be curious to know what anybody has to say to this. Bit of audience participation. So let's see. Adam?
So I would say men overall, it has to do with trying to attract women. You know, it's men will do anything to have sex, and a sense of humor on a man attracts women versus a sense of...
Okay. So the thing that they're discussing is the fact that apparently Adam Carolla said at some point that men are funnier than women. Hitch did this, loads of people did this. It's really not a difficult thing to argue. For context, what Adam has said is the fact that generally speaking, men are funnier than women. However, there are women that are funnier than men, like Sarah Silverman and Kathy Griffin, I believe, are the examples he made or he gave. Arguable as it may be. But the thing that I want to focus on is the fact that he said a sentence very nonchalantly. And he said, men will do anything in order to have sex. Is that real? I mean, I have the benefit, like Carolla really, to have lived for a few decades. This means I have gone through the times in which I was the most fertile, I suppose. The most interested in that sort of thing. After being married for 20 years to the same woman, things change somewhat. Your stamina physically decreases, the willingness decreases, and so on and so forth. Full disclosure, I also have a vasectomy, not because of MGTOW reasons, but for the simple reason that it was important for my wife's health, for me to make sure that pregnancies are impossible anymore. So that I think also played a part in the sort of overall reduction of libido. But this is something that I had thought, I have been thinking for a very, very long time, since I want to say almost like early even teenage years. I would say 14, 15, that sort of thing. Like, while I, like any other person I knew at the time, any other man I knew at the time, had an interest in in sexual intercourse, as well as a sort of a posturing machinery all around me, where all of the boys were always posturing that they had experience in that space. I would have been included in that form of line at the time as well, for sure. So, I never understood this. Like, every girlfriend that I would ever get with, and I've had 5 or 6, right? Anyway, every girlfriend I would ever get with, for me, was the one. That's how I always reasoned. So, I had a one-night stand, but it wasn't my choice. It's sort of It was her choice. It happened. I would have wanted for it to continue. I pursued it as well. And then I was rejected. So I always had that mentality. In other words, I do not see the sexual act as decoupled from the, not so much the reproductive aspect, but more like the relationship, the connection aspect. I don't know if this makes me feminine. I don't think so. I don't think it's a feminine thing. It's something that was very common in Italy, as I understood it, at least at the time, which is every man wanted the woman to be his. So, because the word dating, for example, didn't exist at the time. I do not know what Italians would call dating right now. What we used to say at the time was uscire, which means going out with. And going out with was the machinery that was necessary in order for men and female, for male and female, to figure out if they were meant to be something a bit more important than just going out. Because I assumed going in was probably, meaning being indoors in private, would have been seen as the consummating of the act. But there wasn't this understanding I have now of this essentially infinite libertine mentality of everybody seems to be dating and sleeping with everybody everywhere. It's very odd, even though my understanding is that statistically the most recent generations actually have less intercourse than ours, which I don't really struggle to believe too much. I'm not really sure, because ours is quite failing from that perspective as well, as far as I can work out. Either way, these stats are relatively worthless. Whatever. The point is, I never saw my relationship to a female as something whose end goal was the sexual act. So once it was done, that was it. That was finished. It was done. I had ticked a box. I never saw anything. I never imagined anything like that. And I didn't see it around me either. There may have been some crazy playboys around, some Casanovas. We're in Italy, might as well call them that. But I never saw one. Maybe it wasn't my circle, but I don't know, man. I was like in the metalhead circle. I was playing with a band, and so we were going around. There was drugs, sex, and alcohol. Well, everything was there except the sex, I suppose. So I don't know. But at that time I was never alone, at least not for meaningful stretches of time. I always had a girlfriend, but that was my girlfriend. There was the one girlfriend. There was the concept of cheating, which I understand still exists now, was very much seen as something unknown or something that isn't done. And my understanding is today it's the same. But today it's more malleable because there's this concept of commitment. I never understood the non-commitment. I commit, period. If I go out with one female, that's the female. I don't chase others. That's not how it works. Now, specifically, however, I want to veer the discussion in a slightly different direction. This is almost all backdrop, really, which is I had understood relatively young, and this has stayed with me forever, that I really do not think that sex is as motivating as, for some reason, everybody is pretending for it to be in a man's life. I'm sure for some people it will be. Nymphomaniacs, whatever, fine. But for the vast majority of people, and men specifically, I really do not think they think of the sexual act very frequently during the day. For anybody who's normal. I chat with fellas on a daily basis. We hang out, we go do things, and I've done it for 20 plus years. Never once, has the discussion meaningfully fallen on this type of stuff? Generally speaking, females are not interesting as a topic of discussion or of thinking about. We're way more likely to talk about, I don't know, some kind of sporting activity, fishing or something. You know? Females just don't occupy our minds, certainly don't occupy mine at all. I find them extraordinarily dull as a topic. As well as other things. But, without wishing to go down a rabbit hole I don't want to go down, is I really do not think this obsession, this fake obsession with the sexual sphere from the male perspective is real. This is one of the examples of the biggest mass delusions I have ever seen. And it seems to me like an extension of that teenager posturing. Who, me? Of course, I'm sexually active. Yes, right. That's how you postured when you were a teen, to look cool. Maybe you look like a fool, really, but that's something you only discover when you're older. Now, of course, there's those like crazy people like the Gene Simmons of the world, or the Will Chamberlains of the world, who apparently have had I don't know how many women, 3,000, 4,000. I don't see any interest at all in that. Any interest at all. I must be wired differently. Not only that, then there's the principal point, right? I have given my word in marriage. I have given my word to one woman that I will be loyal to her. Well, I will be loyal to her. It's very simple. The beauty of oaths, or promises, if you will, contracts, is that they're usually simple. Well, unless they're a little bit more 6-point starry and a little bit more garbled, but other than that, they are generally simple. Marriage is simple. Till death do us part, And I see the relationship between a boy and a girl, as in boyfriend and girlfriend, as being a precursor to this. Essentially, it's a marriage without it being permanent, with the clear possibility that some things could go wrong and it can stop. A marriage cannot stop. Okay? So, with that said, where is this evidence that apparently men are obsessed with sex? And if you argue, yes, but the quantity of adult content out there is enormous, and so on, yes, I suppose, but I'm not sure that I see the self-indulgence in that particular space as being the same as going for a body count. That seems to me more like a physiological requirement, which, by the way, does fade in time as well. As you age, it's just unimportant to do that. And if you're married, it's unnecessary. Because, the relationship between the wife and man is what really covers that aspect. So, I'm not sure, but my understanding is that there's a lot of married men that consume the type of content, etc., presumably, that they're doing it with some intent. I'm trying to speak with relative elegance here in terms of what words I use, because this content is primarily meant for my children to one day listen to. So, I don't want to be crass. Either way, I think all of this enormous construct about how important sex is to men is a gigantic lie. And it's like a yoke that men carry. It is very refreshing to me to see MGTOW as a movement completely shed this idea and tear it down. Tear it apart. You can't cook, you can't clean, I don't want you anywhere around me. I don't want you anywhere around me because you're just going to destroy my life, and I don't want any of that. Thank you very much. You're losing to pixels, they say to women. Which I think is a very interesting point. But still, I really don't think men are as interested in this sphere as it's made out to be. So yeah, I'm keen to hear opinions. Though please, whatever opinions you do share, do try to make them slightly nuanced. Right? I am a 40-year-old man. I have seen the obvious trite ones. So something more intelligent would be rather welcome. Thank you very much. Merry Christmas once again.